So it's important for us to also understand each other. And this is what I find missing in the narrative today, that we seem to be missing each other and talking past each other. And that is why when I watched the movie South Africa Rising, it brought a sort of well of emotion up in me. And one can do a critique of documentaries. I mean, did they capture the real essence of our struggle, which was ordinary people in the factories, shops, and mines, in the communities, in the villages, standing up to say, I've had enough, and I am going to fight for my human dignity. And did it capture that? Well, not absolutely. But it did capture the moment that we stood on the brink of a precipice, of a racial catastrophe. And we were able to step back and have leaders that rose on all sides to say, do we want a scorched earth? And that's when a decision was made, particularly after the assassination of Chris Hani, which was a tremendously important moment in our history that could have plunged this country into a racial civil war and brought the country back and then forged a way forward. And a way forward that said we live in one country, black and white, and we have got to learn to live with each other. In response to what Andrew has said, what is the one word that captures your emotion? Let me throw it to you. Let me hear. Having heard what he says, knowing what's happening in the country, what is one word that will describe where you are as an individual? So let's have some volunteers.
Disappointed.
Disappointed? Sure. Let's shout it out.
Delayed.
Delayed.
To listen. To listen.
To listen.
Nervous.
Nervous.
Complacent.
Complacent.
Despair.
Despair.
Indifferent.
Indifferent.
Guilty.
Guilty. Okay. Why are we going to make that mistake again? And so this is our, I think the challenge that faces South Africa today is this denialism of failure. But it breeds its fire, its destruction in our land. Why are we so violent? It's a question we should ask ourselves. And I did an interview today and tried to understand the demand, the clamoring around this brutal rape of this innocent 17-year-old, Anine Booysen. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I'm terrified for her every time she goes out. And so when I wrote that letter, I was responding to something that also I felt deeply. Is this the hope, the future that we are offering our children? But the clamoring for the death penalty, for castration of those rapists, this instant gratification that we want to see tomorrow. And the question that we have to ask ourselves, the hard question, are we prepared as parents to stand up and denounce the father or the stepfather, the uncle, or the cousin, or the brother that we know is abusing our child? Will we do that? And what we know, even up to today, is the state does not have the institutional capacity to deliver. In fact, no state in the world can deliver everything that the citizens deserve and have a right to. And the collapse of the Soviet Union is a classic example of that. And that's what I find missing in the narrative of this country. It's not around issues, it's around personalities. So do we have a Malema today? And tomorrow it's a Mazibuko, or a Mantashe, or a Cyril Ramaphosa. And I think that is our challenge, is how do we get beyond individuals? How do we get beyond institutions or political parties And I think that's our challenge, because in the way we saw democracy was a notion of an alliance between government, business, labor, and civil society. Where have we failed? And I don't think I am going to provide the solutions. It'll be the next generation. And if that next generation is not given the means to articulate their grievances, when leadership has deserted them, whether within the factories or the mines or the communities, in the schools, where there's a sexual epidemic that is taking place against young girls, they, the people, will believe we, many of us, in the class that is represented here, have abandoned them. And so when they believe people have abandoned them, they will take to the streets and they will burn down anything that represents authority or the establishment. And then violence becomes a language. Now, many of us employ people in our homes. Do we know what's happening with their children? Do we know what schools they go to? Most of you work in businesses. I know it's a fantastic idea to go and build a school and get to cut the ribbon with the local MEC. But I think what's needed is more than that.